Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really diving into some fascinating texts, excerpts that make you rethink, some fundamental things.
Yeah, stuff like history, yourself, creativity, their whole place in the world, really.
Exactly. And these aren't like light beach reads.
No, definitely not. They're quite profound, philosophical. They really push you to look deeper.
So we'll be exploring ideas like how your own experience might connect to these big universal truths.
And where real power comes from, or the unity underlying nature.
Right. And what intellect and art are really for. And this idea of reality constantly unfolding.
So yeah, get ready. It might challenge some of your usual ways of thinking.
Could show you the world and maybe yourself in a bit of a new light.
Let's hope so.
Okay, so let's kick things off. History. We usually think of it as, stuff that happened out there, dates, events.
Right. External.
But these sources, they propose something different.
Yeah.
A really deep link between history and the self. It starts with this idea. There is one mind common to all individual men.
Which is pretty radical. It suggests that universal history isn't just collected facts. The text says, if the whole of history is in one man, it is all to be explained from individual experience.
Whoa. Okay, so understanding, say, Caesar Borgia or Asdrubal, it's not just reading about them.
Apparently not. You have to connect it inside. Find the echo in your own secret experience, as the text puts it. That's how you really understand.
Yeah, that changes how you'd approach learning history, doesn't it?
Completely. And it connects to another point. The roots of all things are in man.
Meaning
external things, kingdoms, colleges, nature itself. They're somehow related to our inner reality, like reflections.
Okay.
The examples are striking. Santa Croce, St. Peter's, Magnificat. Right. But the source calls them lame copies after a divine model.
And that model is the soul.
The soul, yeah. Even Strasbourg Cathedral is described as basically a material version of the builder's inner self.
So the inner world comes first. That feels really linked to self-reliance.
It absolutely is, because if that universal mind is within you, then trusting your gut feeling, that latent conviction, it isn't just personal opinion. It could be you tapping into the universal sense.
Like the great thinkers Moses, Plato, Milton.
Exactly. They spoke what they thought, their truth, and that's what resonated.
So history is personal.
Yeah.
Because the patterns are already inside us, in that shared mind. Okay, that sets up the next big idea nicely. If history is mirrored inside, where does that connection come from?
Yes. That leads us to the oversoul.
The oversoul. Tell us about that.
It's presented as this universal being, the source that contains and connects everyone, the common heart.
The common heart. I like that. It's the source of real conversation, right action.
That's the idea. It's called the overpowering reality which confutes our tricks and talents. It forces you to be genuine, basically, to speak from your core, not just put on a show.
Right, cuts through the ego stuff.
Right. And genius, virtue, love, they're not just things you achieve. They happen when you become an organ of the soul.
How does it put it? Genius breathes through his intellect.
Yeah. And virtue breathes through his will, love flows through his affection. It's something moving through you from that deeper source.
There's that proverb mentioned, too. God comes to see us without bell. What's that getting at?
It means there's no real separation, no dividing line. The text says, no bar or wall in the soul where man, the effect, ceases, and God, the cause, begins. It's all interconnected.
So when you see truth or feel love, it's not you creating it from scratch.
It's more like you're allowing a passage to its beams, letting it flow through. And this universal nature, it's in everyone, always.
And seeing that same core nature in others, that helps you look past the surface stuff.
Exactly. You see the identical nature appearing through them all. It moves you from the purely personal to something more impersonal, universal.
The texts talk about revelation, too, not as some ancient history, but as something now.
Right, an influx of the divine mind into our mind. Personal, immediate, and often brings that feeling of the sublime, that thrill of understanding something new and deep.
That's very different from just learning facts.
It is, and it helps explain the difference between just being clever, having knack and skill, and real inspiration or genius.
Genius being
a larger imbibing of the common heart, a deeper drink from that shared source.
Okay, so we have history inside us, connected by this oversoul. How does this presence, this universal thing within us, shape reality itself? That brings us to circles, right?
Yes, circles. It's a key metaphor.
The eye is the first circle, the horizon the second.
Exactly. It symbolizes nature's way of repeating, expanding. There's no final boundary.
And that quote from St. Augustine, God as a circle.
Center everywhere and circumference nowhere. Yeah. It captures that boundlessness.
So how does that relate to reality?
Well, the idea is that nothing is ever truly finished or contained. Every ultimate fact is only the first of a new series. Every law we discover is just part of a bigger one we haven't seen yet.
So there's no outside, no enclosing wall, no circumference to us.
Right. Which feels huge, doesn't it? Infinite potential for the universe and for us.
Because there's always more. That residuum unknown.
Exactly. That's why every man believes that he has a greater possibility. There's always more to uncover.
But that must mean things aren't very stable, if everything is always opening into something new.
Well, yeah. From a fixed viewpoint, it is unstable. No man knows what is safe or where it will end. Because discovering a new generalization, a wider circle, is like an influx of the divinity. It shakes things up.
Reputations, theories, reality itself.
Yeah.
It can all shake and rattle.
Which runs counter to our desire to be settled, right? To have things figured out.
Definitely. But the text argues, what? That being unsettled is good.
Only as far as they are unsettled is there any hope for them. That's the quote. Life is change, a series of surprises.
And trying to cling to the past.
Yeah.
It's like old age. Importing rags and relics.
Yeah, true life is transition, the energizing spirit. It's about flowing with that constant unfolding, not resisting it.
Wow, okay. That's a powerful way to view change. So if reality is this dynamic unfolding process, how does our intellect fit in? How do we understand this?
Intellect, in these texts, isn't just calculation. It's described as something more fundamental, a force anterior to all action or construction.
It can dissolve fire, gravity, laws, method. So it's deeper than the rules.
Seems so. And there's a strong emphasis on intuition, the spontaneous or intuitive principle over just logic.
But intuition includes logic.
Yes, intuition contains logic, but it should be silent, an underlying method, not a list of propositions you follow step by step.
So truth doesn't just come from hard thinking, from labor with your brains.
Not solely. It also comes from allowing insights, letting the great soul show it. There's a rhythm to it, like breathing, effort, then reception.
The law of undulation. And this connects intellect to timelessness, immortality.
In a way, when you engage with great thinkers, great works, you recognize the truth in them. Why? Because that capacity for perfect reception is also in you. It connects you across time.
But there's a warning too, right? About focusing too narrowly.
Yes. Fixating on one single idea, one piece of the truth. The source warns it can distort everything. It calls it incipient insanity almost. Blinds you to the whole picture.
So how do you avoid that? How do you keep perspective?
The key seems to be entire self-reliance in your intellectual life, trusting your own soul, your connection to that universal source. It's a counterpoise of all souls.
That sounds very bold.
Yeah.
Treat the greatest thinkers as peers.
Essentially, yes. Aeschylus, Bacon, Kant, measure their ideas against your inner truth, your intellectual integrity.
Even if it means rejecting them. Sacrificing 1,000 Aeschyluses.
That's the provocative idea. Your own direct line to truth is paramount.
And this is what those ancient thinkers did. Hermes, Plato, Plotinus.
They spoke from that primary logic, rooted in the soul, not worried about proving points or convincing others, just expressing that fundamental knowing.
A logic that feels like the blueprint for everything. Poetry and music and dancing.
Right. So pure, they wouldn't dilute it just to be easily understood.
Okay. From intellect, let's shift to art. How do these texts see the role of art?
Its function is described in ways that are both practical and, well, deep. To acclimate man and earth.
Acclimate. Like help us feel at home here.
Yeah, help us deal with being human, bend the exile to his fate, help us live on even terms with time, find meaning right now.
So art helps us reconcile with life.
That's a good way to put it. And great art is seen as an attempt, maybe always imperfect, to show that aspiring original within, it's a finer success in self-explication, the soul trying to become visible.
And it mentions that the unconscious part of a work, the inevitable quality, that's often more compelling than just skill.
Right. It feels like something larger is at play, a gigantic hand. Because the best art isn't just technically good, it's universal. It feels religious, maybe. Connects to basic truths.
It restores simplest states of mind.
Because it's a reappearance of the original soul, like a jet of pure light, similar to how we experience nature.
And the real beauty comes from the artist's character radiating through.
Yes, the radiation of human character. The artist has to pour themselves into it, then the material becomes pliable. Adamant will be wax in his hands.
So it's not about copying famous styles, going to
Right.
Rome or Paris.
No. Find your expression where you are, in the gray, unpainted wood cabin, the log hut. Authenticity over imitation.
I love that part where the writer goes to Europe, expects something totally new in the art.
And finds the same old eternal fact. The same truth they knew back home. The plain you and me.
Yeah. The truth isn't located somewhere else. It's universal.
And that leads to a really challenging idea. There's higher work for art than the arts. True art isn't just making paintings or statues. It's the fundamental need to create in a huge universal way. And that drive might even get impatient with making objects because they're always incomplete cripples and monsters.
Interesting. And it criticizes art that's just about beauty detached from life.
Definitely. Art separated from religion, love, use. It's called effeminate, prudent, sickly beauty. Because the art can't be higher than the artist's own character or inspiration, the hand can never execute anything higher than the character can inspire.
So art has to come from deeper within the person.
It must begin farther back in man. It critiques artists who find life ugly or prosaic and try to create some separate, artificial beauty, a death which they call poetic.
They're missing the beauty in life itself.
Exactly. The real goal, the text suggests, is to understand creation so deeply that art merges back into nature. Life may be lyric or epic, as well as a poem or a romance.
Living authentically is the art form.
Precisely. Making your life the masterpiece.
Okay, so let's try to weave all this together. We started with history in the self,
Moved to the oversoul connecting us.
saw reality as unfolding circles,
Explored intellect as intuition.
and landed on art as ultimately about living authentically. What's the big takeaway here?
I think the core message, repeated in different ways, is that the real source of everything, truth, power, beauty, isn't out there somewhere. It's within. It's the oversoul, that divine spark inside each of us.
And it's not just sitting there. It manifests. It helps you understand history, guides self-reliance,
Lets you perceive reality's flow, finds expression in true art, and ultimately in how you live.
and living from that source, it changes things, makes life easier.
The promise is pretty profound. Place yourself in the middle of the stream of power and wisdom, and you are without effort impelled to truth, to right, and a perfect contentment. It dissolves the struggles that come from living on the surface.
And it unlocks your uniqueness, not makes you a copy.
Right. It helps you find the thing that you can do easily and well that no one else can. He has no rival. Your specific gift comes from channeling that universal source in your own way.
So your potential is tied to trusting that inner connection.
Yeah, that seems to be the heart of it.
So, wrapping up this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot. History and you, the oversoul connecting all, reality unfolding, intellect and art as expressions of that inner source.
It all points inwards, doesn't it? Not to escape the world, but to find the authentic starting point for living in the world.
The message seems clear. The real wealth, the real power, it's already inside you, connected to something vast and universal.
It's quite an empowering perspective.
It really is. And maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, drawing from these ideas. The text states, there can be no excess to love, none to knowledge, none to beauty. If that's true, and if love, knowledge, and beauty are expressions of the soul, that infinite source within, what does that suggest about all the limits we usually feel? Are they real? Or just a result of us not fully tapping into that boundless source inside?